Hi, everybody. Jeremy Miller, Pira Consulting, along with Amanda Anderson, our Director of Marketing here with the Hire and Fire podcast show. We are back. We got a little bit of a loose topic today, which is cool. We finished a couple of series recently on everything from interviewing. We've done things on resumes.
Harassment,
like the sex, religion, politics series. This one's a little bit of a one-off. We're going to do some fun with some news and notes about cool stuff going on in the industry. And then we're going to debate what the hell you do when you have a talent gap on your team. And we're going to try and come at that fairly quickly, but from a few angles. Hello, welcome back to the studio.
Hello.
We should eventually sell advertising just so we can call it something like the Dr. Pepper Studio. We're coming back from the Pira Consulting Dr. Pepper Studios. Anywho, here we are ready for another episode. We're going to be shooting our skill set version here soon. So in the next month, you'll see basically back-to-back episodes on our project manager skill set. So we break those down once a quarter. So we're going to do 2 episodes. We have a show scheduled for a cool guest next week, and then we're going to do another one breaking down the skill set kind of on our own. So we'll just try and deep dive into what the hell those skill sets are. So project managers, program managers, project coordinators,
product owners
kind of within IT staffing specifically, but just in general as well. So news and notes today and a little bit of a debate later. Hi, welcome. How are you? How's the marketing side of what you do here at Pira Consulting? What the heck's been happening with you?
Things have been going very well, actually. I appreciate our listeners actually starting to engage a little bit more. Thank you for the likes.
And again, we'll
feedback.
We'll take some thumbs down. Talk some shit if you want. I mean, really. Obviously, we want to do a good product for you guys, but if you have recommendations, we are all ears. We're not pros, per se.
Well, and the other thing, too, if there's topics that you think would be interesting to hear Jeremy and I's perspective, send us a note at sales@piraconsulting.com.
That's PIRA consulting.com. LinkedIn, Facebook, our
send
website.
us a message. We're very open to different topics. I just kind of, try to figure out what's going on that's current or things that would be really relevant. But if you've got a few, we would love to hear. Speaking
of Facebook, we're still active there, but that's kind of not our main push. We're giving some more attention to Instagram and to help me out here, TikTok.
I haven't started with the TikTok. That'll be coming.
We're going there. I kind of like the platform. I have teenage daughters. It's hysterical to watch some of the stuff, but I don't really participate. But
we'll try to find some fun stuff to put up there for you guys.
Is the Meta thing? They're not renaming the actual Facebook app, are they? They just
under the umbrella.
The parent company.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I was wondering if they were going to do that. I don't know, man. Yeah, I think cliche, you have the older crowd very active on Facebook.
Correct.
And by older, I mean, I don't know, 30 and up. I'm just making up ages, maybe even 35 and up.
I was going to say a little bit older yet, but it's our parents.
Yeah, so I'm not on any social media presently, kind of just taking a breather for about 3 years.
I'm
happy. I'm great. But I do love the psychology behind it. Obviously, the other apps, Instagram tends to be a little bit more youthful. TikTok is very youthful, but at the same time, very well known and prominent now. But Facebook, I don't know, man. Is she dying? I mean, they own Instagram, so they're fine.
They're fine.
But is
keep
Facebook
inventing.
itself, is it eventually going to go the way of your Sunday newspaper? You know what I mean?
Well, the thing with business and life is, can you adapt? And one of the things that Zuckerberg is really good at is adaptability. So I would not put it past him to create either something new that he just folds Facebook right into,
I know. He plays Monopoly at an interesting level.
Right.
Him, I know he doesn't do this much, but him and Bill Belichick, like literally Mount Rushmore hoodie participants. Like Bill Belichick for the Patriots on the sidelines would not only wear hoodies, but he'd wear like cut off sleeve hoodies, which is to me that's socks with sandals. Like that's a sketchy move.
It's a little hickish.
But Zuckerberg going full blown boardroom, like he didn't do that at Congress or anything.
No, he did have a suit on.
For years, he was well known to be in the boardroom with a sweatshirt on.
Hey, I'm telling you, you got to be comfortable.
I don't disagree, frankly. I find myself of wearing like the full suit attire a little less. I've been kind of casualing it, if that's a word. But
It's not.
Yeah, good point. It's not. Yeah. Anywho, so a little news and notes, some fun stuff. We haven't done this in a while because obviously if there isn't anything worthy of mentioning, we won't. And a lot of topics we've been diving into are they got enough meat on the bone.
Correct.
One of the things we talked about in regards to interviewing was those technical assessments and how we do a lot of that in IT. We're talking anything from speaking to a technical team member during the interview process or like one of those online assessments. And a lot of times our people are doing like code assessments or they like literally have to write stuff. Hours of time sometimes.
Technical
doing these.
writers would have to do some writing.
A great example, yeah. So there was an article I saw for a company called HackerRank, and they are a coding challenge platform for hiring technical talent. Nobody would care, at least most people wouldn't, about the details. Like they're in the news because they're doing rounds of funding. So they brought in another 60 million for a total of 115 million. So they're going full blown, VC investment on the bit. But nonetheless, the company's product enables recruiters to create role-specific technical challenges, coders, and invite candidates to take the challenge. There's other tools like this, or at least some that I'm vaguely familiar of, but this is yet another example of how we as a society are trying to improve on how we're going to do this, because right now we kind of suck at it. Now clearly there's companies like this out there, and there's been technical testing firms that like staffing companies can use as third parties for years, but this is kind of bringing it to the old 21st century angle.
I saw, kind of on this note, I saw a meme that excuse me, where the top part was about like the technical test, and it was war, right? Like they were all at war, and then the bottom part was like the actual job was like ping pong or something along those lines, where they're like, they put you through hell, and then you get there and you're like, really?
Yeah. Actually, so it's kind of funny. This isn't meme-ish, but they were talking about how their platform focuses on the coders themselves. So it enables the coders to practice coding skills and actually prepare for interviews. So it's not just a flat out, did you or did you not code properly in this tool? It's supposed to be meant for almost like it's an employer tool and a job seeker tool as well.
Well, and I think it's important, when you're testing these people, it's not just what they know, but how they go and find information. Because I've talked to enough developers and programmers where they're like, Google is our best friend. Like, you don't know everything.
Yeah.
So
they might dig the fact that you're willing to dig.
You should know how to go find the answer just as much as you need to know answers.
My favorite way the article ends, and it's funny the way it's worded, right? HackerRank reported that it has more than blank customers, and it claims that it has a community of more than blank million developers. I hope it's true. Good for them, HackerRank. Go get them. Similar yet different, not even close. No, it's completely different. There was another article that I found having to do with ransomware attacks. We did a series on security previously, and based on our schedule, we'll end up covering that again. But frankly, another year from now or whatever. But I love this topic because security is everywhere. We just had a cool discussion during our morning meeting today, because it really, in IT, it's starting to feel like the systems-related skill sets. By that, I mean Windows, Unix, Linux. They've been around in their own forms for years and years, but security is starting to really just absorb a lot of that. So if you have a Windows systems engineer role, it's a lot of times being called a security engineer only because the security side of what these guys are doing all day is becoming so prominent that it's almost taking over the title, even though it's just an aspect of the job. Does that make sense? So, security can just be a component. You might be a Windows systems administrator, but you're administering everything from Windows servers to Active Directory to SharePoint to So
whatever you do,
Yeah.
you need to make sure it's secure.
Right. So security is such a component of all of these jobs nowadays that it's basically becoming a component of everything.
That makes sense.
Right. But yeah, so security, DevOps is kind of similar, how it's really just stolen a lot, where everything is kind of encompassing the cloud, or how companies handle how applications are developed internally. That's kind of the difference between cloud and DevOps. But the article itself that I'm derailing from, ransomware attacks rose 105% in 2021. And now, here's an interesting twist. A top concern for the industry having to do with ransomware attacks is the Ukraine war.
Really?
Yeah, so cyber attacks have become more attractive and potentially more disastrous as dependence on IT increases, quote unquote, from the Sonic Wall president. But the war in Ukraine has also increased alarm over cybersecurity. In a sign of concern, last week, President Biden signed into law legislation that requires companies that provide critical infrastructure to report the attacks within 72 hours. And now, this sucks for them, have to report ransom payments within 24 hours. So now that you not only have to pay somebody because of a ransom attack, that sucks.
But you got to own up to it.
And there are actually very legitimate reasons, unfortunately, companies as to why they would want to do that. But at the same time, having to advertise it in lights to a government report, that sucks.
That does.
So anywho, ransomware is the number one cybersecurity concern.
Yeah, that I believe.
So and so. So it's basically just talking about how ransom attacks are continuing to grow, and then staffing firms like ours and candidates and hiring managers like everybody out there have to understand that's just a part of everything you're going to be doing. Security. So good news. I mean, really, I view this all as good news. If you have a differing opinion, fire away. But like every job stat imaginable is fantastically awesome, right? Like the amount of people getting hired, job openings are up 43% year over year. So if you compare February 21 to February 22, there's an interesting.
Well, we were still in the thick of it last year. Yeah. I feel like. So
but
now,
just in general, going crazy. And then we're breaking records. So as an example, if I can find it, jobless claims, a lot of people have heard this because it was big news. Jobless claims are at the lowest level since 1969.
That's fantastic.
Crazy. So initial jobless claims dropped by 28,000, and they look at these week by week. So the revised number is 187,000 jobless claims. It feels like yesterday we were mid-COVID and it was like 500,000, 600,000.
Now, do you think that's got to be correlated to something else you had said to me just briefly before, was that they're getting looser with who they're hiring?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, talk about a teaser. Well done. All right, we're going to go pimp our commercial, or, our sponsors. No, we don't have any. But the last article we're going to talk about is how companies are hiring people that they otherwise would not have, which is fascinating. And it makes perfect sense when you understand the supply and demand of how hiring works, right?
Right.
So job openings up a lot. Job openings fell by quite a bit in the finance and insurance space, and also in the non-durable goods manufacturing. But they're rising in things like arts, entertainment, and recreation, right? The more people get out there.
Well, Hollywood's open back up.
Yeah,
things
concerts,
are starting to move.
Anything you can imagine that's
comedy,
tied into that.
All of that. Yep.
Other sectors where job openings rose: educational services and the government. That's about anything. That's about the guts of what most people would care about there. But job openings up 43%. That is not a small number.
No,
obviously.
That's fantastic.
Staffing hours. So like the staffing industry, number of hours worked is up 10% year over year, which makes sense. Frankly, almost feels like that's a little low. However, the way year over year stats work, because of the hiring that has happened in the last year, maybe when we compare hours from now until the end of the year, it will continue to go up because of crazy hiring. And when companies can't keep up with staffing, the staffing industry that provides temp staffing or permanent staffing, like we do here at Pira for IT, just goes up with it. Jobless claims we talked about, which is fantastic. So I don't know what that does in your mind, but if I think jobless claims are as low as 1969, then that basically means that since 50 years ago, this is the lowest number of people that have been wanting to work but are out of work.
Right.
So, and that makes sense, right? Like, I mean, with the amount of hiring signs we've had forever, that if you want a job and you don't have one by now, like, what are you doing?
You're the problem.
Sorry for the bad news. But yeah, so that's
take stock and figure out what the issue is, because companies are dying for talent.
Yes. There was a good study that came out by Manpower, and they're a competitor of sorts, but I give them credit because of the volume. So they did a hiring optimism study for second quarter, and they surveyed 41,000 employers. Okay. So that's not a small number. 46% plan to hire workers in the second quarter. 16% plan to let go. A little bit of the seasonally adjusted, which is tough, right? So that, take that plan to let go with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, 46% plan to hire workers. Frankly, not even surprised if that number would have been higher.
No, I mean, we're in that category.
Yeah, we are absolutely in that category. And that'll actually jump into our second topic in regards to identifying and addressing talent gaps, because the inability to hire good people can cause that. So we'll touch on that in a little bit, obviously. So that's the old Manpower. If anybody gives a crap, the temp staffing revenue is up 25% year over year. Which frankly should be good news for everybody, because that means people are getting back to work and staffing companies are making money. If we're doing this properly, then our clients love us for it because they're hiring people. So hopefully everybody wins and that number continues to grow just in regards to temp staffing revenue. I don't know. What's your opinion? Contract-based work. Is there any part of you that kind of thinks that those jobs should be given more permanent credence, or do you just view it as a necessary evil, for lack of a better word? Or how do you view it personally? Just hiring a contractor versus a permanent person.
It depends on, my perspective is, it depends on the need. So, we're looking at that for me and my department a little bit initially.
Because of the fact that it would be a part-time
Because it's part-time, right? Yep. And so you don't have the need necessarily for a full-time person. But you
IT's big
still
on projects, which is why contracts can be a big deal.
Or you need to hurry up, get a bunch of work done, but it's not sustainable long term.
The thing that's interesting that you might, anybody, might enjoy out there about me being in the staffing industry for 15 whatever years, is the amount of companies that strategically use a volume of contractors for a variety of reasons. So let's just say they have 40 employees on their team. Who cares what they do? It doesn't matter. A lot of firms will have 25% of their staff contractors. And then what they do as they need and have budget to hire a permanent person, whether somebody of the 30 got promoted, got fired, quit, then they will backfill those permanent roles with their existing contractor staff. So it's essentially a carrot for the contractors to always be kicking ass, because if there's an opening, you could be the next one hired, right? Sure. And it shows an upward mobility into the company if the reason why you got hired as a contractor is because somebody got promoted, which is obviously a good sign, right?
I actually like that. It's kind of like try before you buy sort of thing. You get a chance to prove yourself as a worker, but then you also get to kind of test drive even the company, because maybe you don't want to be a permanent employee there, or maybe you do.
There's also a lot of companies out there that will do virtually exclusively contractors in the department year over year over year over year, right? So
why is that? I don't understand.
I think the only times that I've seen it done well and purposefully for everybody included is just the turnover. Let's say it's a customer service help desk group. Where the turnover is a real challenge, everything having to do with paperwork internally or, unemployment claims, those things for the company vanish.
Sure.
They can put some onus on the staffing company for maybe even deliverables, saying, hey, if you're going to be filling this department, Like I picture a company down near where my kids go to school, and they have banners on the outside of their company business with a staffing firm logo, right? So clearly they are invested in this staffing firm where even their company's logo is on the outside of the building because they are probably just supplying the entire department.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But nonetheless, it can be a little dicey if you feel like you're a contractor and you're not being given the same privileges as a permanent person or whatnot. The try before you buy is really interesting on the contractor side because actually most companies are not doing contract to hire for that reason. It's just money. They don't want to have to pay the fee of doing permanent placement. And then if they hire you on contract and keep you for long enough, normally 6 or more months, then they can convert you for free, saving a lot of money. So that's kind of where a lot of that comes from.
I only had one situation where I worked with a contract hire person. It was an insurance agent.
Oh, okay.
And he gave them all 90 days. Like he didn't want to worry about having to let them go if they didn't work out.
He didn't want to lose them?
No, like he didn't want to have to fire them and pay,
understand.
I would assume, like unemployment if they didn't work out. Or if he just didn't like their work or whatever. So he started every position as a contract to hire.
Okay.
So he could try before he bought.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right on.
That would be my only experience with it.
So go team, Temps Avenue revenues up. Sorry. So last but not least, well, I guess we could tease another little topic. There was an article. There was an article that came out from CNBC that made me laugh a little bit, and it was basically ranking the top 5 most boring jobs and the top 5 most exciting jobs. And they're a little more generic than, at least to me, they were a little more generic than I wanted them to be. But the top 5, what do you want to hear first? The top 5 most boring jobs or exciting jobs?
Start with exciting.
Exciting.
I think so.
Performing arts.
Sure.
So very generic. Science, journalism is viewed as an exciting job.
I can see that.
Health professional, which really does make sense, especially because of how big that industry is growing. And how about this? Exciting jobs? Teaching.
Well, you never know what's going to come out of these people's mouth.
That is for damn sure, regardless of age. I don't know what I'm saying right now. Top 5 most boring jobs. Wah, wah. Like the first 3 are just flat out numbers based analytical stuff, right?
It is a little dry.
If you don't work, if you don't enjoy this,
you don't find it fascinating,
then you would find it boring. So it's data analysis. As a man,
my eyes are crossed. Oh my God. Ugh.
Accounting. Right?
Numbers again.
Tax and or insurance
Numbers
work.
again.
Boom, right? I'm going to put them out of order, but another one, which is technically number 5, is banking, which is kind of in the same capacity.
Money and numbers.
And I do not enjoy sitting in the lobby of my bank, and I actually like my bank, so I can't imagine what it feels like to work there. But maybe it's sweet. I don't know. And then the top 5 most boring jobs, number 4 that we haven't covered yet is cleaning. Which obviously monotonous.
It's monotonous. But it's rewarding. You get to see it go from gross to nice.
Okay, that's true.
Like that's super rewarding.
Now, granted, I obviously that would be a tough job to do 40 hours a week.
It is, and it's hard on your body.
No doubt about that, for sure. So there you have it. Teaching, top 5 most exciting jobs. Bet you didn't know that. All right, so last but not least on these articles. This is fascinating because of supply and demand, as we talked about. But companies hiring people they otherwise would not have. 63% and I can get, basically they just refer to it as hiring decision makers, said they overlooked soft or hard skills when hiring a worker. These are obviously recent studies, so this is not shocking. If you can't find people, you start to get a wee bit desperate, shall we say.
Right.
Gripping the bat. You might have your boss yelling at you. You might have actual carrots tied to your ability to get people into your department. And if you're struggling, then you start loosening the parameters a little bit, don't you?
Or if you're not hiring and your existing staff is feeling the pain and you could lose more, making it even worse.
Good point.
Oh.
Good point.
Sometimes it's like, okay, you don't want to get a warm body, but at some point you're like, maybe we need a warm body.
Yeah. So if 39% of hiring managers reported that they hired somebody they otherwise would not have in order to fill an open role, that sucks.
That sucks.
I would argue you're going too far in making a bad business decision.
I would want to know how many ended
Still
up
on the
being
job?
satisfied though.
Interesting.
Like
you've-
I wouldn't normally hire them, but shit, they're killing it.
Or you found a diamond in the rough
Yeah.
and
I would
Interesting,
love
right?
to know a follow-up on that one.
Here's a really cool stat, though. 45% of hiring managers overlooked an applicant's ability to pass a background check or drug screen because they needed to hire so badly.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
I think that's just fine.
All of the felons,
We all have
the
past.
felons and aggressive drug users out there have hope. We've actually touched on this a little bit in a video or two on background and drug checks. Interesting topic. I don't really think it's cool enough to go full-blown podcast on it, but if you have any challenges with background checks or drug screens, feel free to actually reach out to us because there's just a lot of nuances there. Simple things like it used to be just an automatic fail if you had a felony, and it's not the case anymore. And I'll be honest with you, I don't quite understand all of it.
Well, the part that my brain goes to is, back in the day, and I'm talking like back, if you got arrested for anything and your papers or whatever they used to have had any blemish on it, you were toast.
Yeah.
There was no way you were ever getting hired for anything respectable.
Yes.
Well,
you're fired.
Yes. And so if nowadays, or, now go to a few years ago, if you had a felony, you still, to some degree, couldn't get a super respectable job. So I think it's good if they're starting to overlook some of this stuff because, I mean, one of our employees here shared about how he had a blemish and it was ridiculous. And
and we've covered some of this stuff too. I mean, I've had clients in my career that do forever background checks, and I've literally had a senior, I've been in the industry for 30 plus years, individual fail a background check because of something that happened like 26 years ago. And to me, that's asinine.
You're a whole different person.
Now, just to geek on this for a second, almost every background check is either 5, 7, or 10 years, and the most common is 7. And then beyond that, it's a little bit at the discretion of the company. The results are the results, so the company gets to decide, and they have their own policy that's documented. Normally, the old theft, fraud, violence is going to give you the auto fail, even with misdemeanors sometimes, but if you're struggling with any of these things, talk to staffing companies because, we deal with this stuff all the time and there's more nuances than you would think. It's just surprising that, that there that many people would be not only overlook them, but actually have the ability to do so, meaning that like they either had the pull or they got management approval or whatever to say, we need people. Can we not drug test this round or what have you? Interesting stuff. The drug testing that kind of bugs me is the fact that in multiple states now recreational marijuana is legal, but since it's not federally, employers in those states can still use that drug as a way to withhold employment or whatnot, which to me is a bit of bullshit, but I get it. It's just the way our country is laid out. But nonetheless, that one's a little goofy. We actually, for the first time ever, had a client pull the marijuana component out of a 5-panel drug test. So we started doing a 4-panel, which I'd never seen before. But all right,
it makes sense.
Yeah. So anywho, it's interesting about how companies would be doing this. We've experienced this actually a little bit less than this survey would play out, at least in my opinion. We have had some clients hire people that we kind of knew and help them understand up front that this person was either like more junior than they would want, or maybe wanted more money than they would normally pay for this level of experience, things of that nature.
Sure.
But we've not seen companies the companies we work with are not lowering the bar like aggressively.
Not yet.
Aggressively. Yeah. God knows, maybe they will. Maybe if it was another year or two worth of struggling to find people.
Well, a few of the things that I remember talking about stuff 6 to 12 months ago, and we also hadn't seen like pay rates increase, even though they were reporting it. So maybe that's still to come, that there's a little lack, whether it's our industry, our niche, our location, whatever it is, who knows? Maybe it's just lagging a little bit, and,
Yes.
and we'll get there pretty soon.
Yeah, I don't know. All
Speculative.
All things are good, because the only way that this switches to go back to being an employer-based market is if the economy goes to shit.
Yeah.
And things have to be bad, where few companies are hiring, and then now there's too many candidates. And frankly, neither one of the pendulum swings are good. We're trying to keep it in the middle.
Keep it in the middle, people. Come on.
If we can, geez. But anyway, interesting to consider. Here's a good one too. We've talked about this before, especially on the female side of the equation, where women are way less likely to apply for jobs unless they have like what they deem to be like 90-ish+% of the quote unquote requirements.
Right.
And I think men were more in the like 50 to 60 range.
Yeah.
So this is a good reason to think of it, right? If you're trying to get a job, maybe that's a little above you, this could be a good chance to do that, because, you know, you can reach, and there is a chance that companies will be willing to take less or take a chance on somebody, so go for it, right?
Well, especially if you've got transferable skills, and you can highlight that of like, hey, I don't have necessarily the direct experience that you're looking for, but I have all of these transferable skills. And I'm going to be doing a vlog on that as well. Those are really important to highlight in this market because of the gap.
Yeah.
Like
I can juggle.
Demand.
I mean, that's legit.
It's not a transferable
it's not.
skill.
All right, my bad. My bad. I didn't know that.
Leadership,
Thanks, Obama.
yeah,
Right.
leadership, writing, management, critical thinking, problem solving, those kind of things. Highlight those if you feel like you're in the 50 to 60% range of, you know, matching with the company with your direct skills. Highlight your transferable soft skills.
It's just if there's ever a time in the market based on supply and demand for hiring that you are at when you would be at your best likely chance to get a job that you're not qualified for, could be right now. And a lot of the hiring and turnover is obviously people that have jobs taking other ones because they're getting more money, they're getting more responsibility, they're getting more perks, they're whatever. So some of these things can be undervalued, kind of the idea that, no, maybe this is your chance to stretch and give it a shot. Because
career industry change.
Switcheroo altogether. That's another good point. And maybe you could get more money entry level in that other field now than ever. I don't know. You know, it's obviously these are situational, but worthy of thinking about. All right, so we are switching over to identifying and addressing talent gaps. We love this question because for me, here's the biggest thing for me on this immediately. I love promoting from within. So if I don't have somebody promotable, I have no choice but to look in the mirror and be like, there's something that I didn't hire for properly.
Sure.
Is that what your mind goes to, or something completely else?
As far as the talent, I think hiring from within is so beneficial. It helps you actually get better hires because you have people who are willing to come in at a lower level and learn your ways, knowing that the culture is, hey, we're going to look internally first.
Yes.
And it's easier to find that lower level talent. So this was a huge process that I followed when I was hiring and staffing a department, was almost exclusively we promoted within.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot easier to find those entry level positions and kind of weed through them to find talent than it is to go out and hire talent probably at a premium, and then you're going to fight with them a little to do it the way that maybe you want them to do it,
because they're coming in from the outside.
They don't
So
know how things are.
You want brainwashable people from the bottom level.
I want malleable people.
Get them drunk on the Kool-Aid so that they don't know any better.
That's true.
Yes. I mean, that's more of the sadistic way to refer to
the leader of the cult, so to speak.
I'm telling you right now, I don't even know how I would do it. But if I was to run a consulting company, like based on how to help companies hire better, this would be my main focus.
Yeah.
I get it. Like this is what we do all day. We help companies do the opposite, right? They are coming to us going, we just lost a senior member. We need a senior member. And
Right.
I 100% understand why. And there's 80 million legitimate reasons as to why to do that. But I think if you have a department that's sizable enough, and this is off the top of my head, I think if you have 10 or more people, you're in a position where you can take flyers on that 10th person. And that means every time you lose an individual, if you have a feeder group below you, clearly that's the factor that you can pull from. How long will it take that person to get up to speed instead of hiring outside, right?
Sure.
And if the answer is 6 months, that might be digestible. If the answer is 3 years, then that answers your question, whether
Right.
you have to have a senior person. But
because if you have a junior team and then no one's ready, that again, your talent gap, then you have to look outside.
Honestly, the only way I can think of to get this to be done is to have a bonus program for all managers that's directly tied to how many people you got promoted from below your team. Because otherwise, okay, if I'm running a group of 10 of who cares what they do, and I'm being tasked with banging ass on that group, we got shit to do, I have to manage these people, and we have production timelines, sales goals, who cares what it is. If that's what I'm being held accountable to, then obviously I want the best people on my team so that I can not only hit those things, but kill it. So I can totally understand why a manager would be like, I don't want to take a flyer on a newbie. I got shit to do. But if you have if you can incentivize them maybe in just a different direction, just with a different numbered goal, maybe I don't know. What do you think? Does that have any credence?
I don't know. I think you have to take chances sometimes. You're going to have to take that chance once in a while. You're not going to always have the people on your staff that are going to be able to uphold the level that you need it to be.
Yeah. And I would argue that if you're in a hiring market like this, where you might be having to reach for somebody lower, if you're struggling, then you look in the department below you.
Correct.
You know, and then the same goes for getting the people. So here's the tough thing. If you're going to be wanting to legitimately pull some of the best people from the department below you, you have to be willing to let your best people be poached to get promoted. And you're equally demotivated to do that, right?
But the sign of a good manager
100%.
is that your people are getting promoted. And it doesn't always mean that they leave your department or that they're going to go into management. Like, one of the worst mistakes you can make as a manager is to always promote your top talent. Just because someone's a really great salesperson doesn't mean they're a great manager.
Oh, come on. That's one of the most brilliant. That is like the thing, right?
Oh, it's the most common mistake, and it's sad because what ends up happening is then you take your top talent and then they underperform, and then they feel like failures, and it is awful to do. It's unjust to do that to a top performer.
Yeah. Now, granted, if that's their career path, different story.
But again, you still have to assess: are they going to be a good manager, leader?
And then assuming that your ass kicker automatically has that skill set or wants to be is a bad mistake. I actually go straight to sports analogies on this one in my brain, where like some of the best coaches in NFL history were like half-ass special teams players. Not standouts, you know
Correct.
what I mean? And if you take the Michael Jordans, you know, he didn't do great running a team. That doesn't mean that, you know, that has something to do with it. But, you know, Wayne Gretzky is not automatically going to make a great bench coach. You know what I mean?
Well,
so
think about it.
It's different.
Think about it. A manager is there. You have to be able to communicate and motivate. And if you're a salesperson, let's just go with sales because it's easy. If you're a salesperson and you are killing it, you might not have the skill set to motivate others. You are for yourself. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially in sales. But yet your underperformers, maybe they're not motivated by money and sales, but they are empathetic.
Yes.
Maybe they understand technique and can articulate it in a way that gets people to want to do it. That's a great leader. Like that's that person, you have to look for the manager of the group, not the top performer.
Yeah, so what's tough about this, if we specifically talk about the talent gap, is going back to where I can be on occasion where, if I want to exclusively promote from within, that means as we're growing, I need to be able to take a certain performer and put them into leadership. So for me, my way of trying to combat the fact that maybe I have a talent gap if no one is presently promotable, or maybe they don't want to be.
Correct.
Is to kind of figure out a different way to do that, where maybe I can add leadership responsibilities to their existing role in order to groom them or utilize their abilities in that way. So that's my way of addressing the talent gap, right? I have a gap of management per se.
Which is usually, for me, I feel like is the most common gap, is the leadership.
So you would say
for me, the most common gap was who to promote for leadership, because I'd have a group of type A people, and you don't want, if you have a group of lions, you might need a lion tamer, not another lion, right? Like you need something different. So that's what I found, is I had to look at my hiring techniques of, okay, I'm always looking for that loud, aggressive, going after it kind of person.
Yeah.
So now I have a team of these people who I loved, right? I loved them. I could rein them in. I knew I was the lion tamer, but I didn't have another lion tamer.
Mm-hmm.
I had just a bunch of lions. And so I had to figure out, I don't even know how to hire or look for this person. And we promote from within. Mm-hmm. So then it was like, okay, do I want them to be on the team? Because then again, they're not going to be a high performer. And then is the team going to respect them because they weren't a high performer? So then that would be an instance where you do promote, you look to hire externally and bring them in, someone with experience in leadership. That's where that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I have another one now where as we scale our locations, we've built this company on having a senior staff. Like that is
Correct.
One of our core fundamental values and beliefs of what we're offering our customers. So that's who we hire. But as our offices get more mature, I love to bring in some more youth into the group, right? So I actually have a little bit of a gap there where I'm in a position now where I can, because of the size of the team, for lack of a better word, take a swing on somebody who's more of an up-and-comer, because we're in a position to, whatever you want to call it, weather the storm if it doesn't work. Correct. Or what have you. So that can be a gap where it's not problematic. It's just noticeable.
Well, you want to have the reputation.
Not all gaps are like, you're not stuck in a gap per se. It just might have just developed over time is essentially what I'm saying.
Well, and you could just identify that's a you thing. It's how you hire. And, I have a gap in who I look for and accept and am willing to take a chance on. How do I combat that? Do I create a mentorship program within the company going, okay, you don't get accounts, but you're going to have, all right, you're working under, not necessarily your top performer again, but maybe your best mentor in the group, the one that is willing to take the time and follows instruction and does things the way you want.
In a technical sense, which is a little different from what we do here internally, but very relevant to our, a lot of our listeners, is that could be a big component. We have a technical team of experts, yes, but we have a talent gap on this specific tool, this specific methodology, or hey, we just rolled out a new whatever. Maybe we're doing things in an agile methodology now. So,
that's a great example.
We need somebody that we have a talent gap where the majority of the people on the team are either missing this or whatnot. So maybe that gap is my next hire has to be this type of person with this certain component or skill, even if they're arguably light in other areas, maybe.
Yes.
There's talent gaps are all over the place, whether it be promoting or technical skills or whatnot.
And it's not always for management. One of the time, it has for the most part been for me, but you could want to take your team in a whole new direction. Maybe you just got promoted and you have a team that's gossipy, or they aren't working as a team, and you need to bring someone in that fosters that.
Yeah.
So maybe you have a culture talent gap, or a direction that you want to, like I said, take the department and okay, we've got people like X, but we need to bring in a Y, so that it rounds it out.
And this part might be the most obvious hair pull out, borderline suicide watch of what our industry can go through, because our clients are going through this on the fly all the time.
Sure.
So even if we've helped them in the past, their next opening could be evolving for any number of these reasons.
Correct.
And a lot of times we really have to yank that information out of them to understand what that's going to be, because they might not even know, or they're trying to figure it out, or it's speculative. So for us, it's incredibly frustrating where we have somebody interview for the position and we find out afterwards they don't like the candidate because they don't have ABC skill. And we're like, well, wait a second. We talked in detail, but ABC wasn't on there. And they'll be like, yeah, but we actually need it now. I'm like, well, that clearly would have been good for everyone's time to know in advance. Well, we didn't know that. Okay, but what else could there be that we don't know, right? Because you're not even ready to interview if you don't know what you need because you have a gap to fill.
Well, what if they're just not even aware, and so this is my question to you, honestly, have you done, has Pira, or maybe in previous positions, previous companies, done consulting with them to say, okay, this position seems to have a lot of turnover. Like, is there a gap in what you need? Are you hiring based on what you think you need and it's not working? Have you tried X?
It's a good question.
Just out of curiosity.
It's a good question. So two things come to mind. I personally made that mistake with hiring here when I first got going and we were expanding. Once we got out of like true startup stages and I was trying to hire people, I was bringing in account managers, but I was bringing them in kind of at the wrong level. They were senior enough, but frankly, the salary, believe it or not, that I was bringing people in at was healthy for me, but it was actually eliminating the level of people that I needed. So it wasn't just the money, it was what the money bought me per se in a higher level experienced candidate, right?
Sure.
So that was really eye-opening because I knew what type of person and I knew how much experience, but it was more of the type of experience that I needed to hone in on. But your question for our clients is, frankly, we would love to be in that position. And a lot of times we are. And it's really just do we have the relationship to do that? Are we a trusted vendor? Staffing is very competitive, and we are directly competing against other firms on almost every placement. But if you have customers that you've kind of carved a hole for yourself in a good way, where you've taken, you have a lot of people placed with that manager, you can be in that position quickly to be able to say that. Or frankly, I'm encouraging a lot of our salespeople to be doing that all the time on the fly. If we notice weaknesses in the interview process, we've had 2 people in a row get rejected about something we didn't know was coming. We don't want to go down this road again until we're ready. So do you guys need to have an internal discussion on what that looks like? Because we don't want to just send you the same type of person again, right? So it's a little bit of a more polite nudge than consulting per se, but that's more of just a generic how we interface with our customers. There might be like true HR hiring process consultants out there, but that's not really what we do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It would just be nice if you're a hiring manager out there, and it's not necessarily even with us, but with anyone, if having someone from a 10,000 foot view give you their assessment, because sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. Right?
Have you ever been lacking self-awareness?
Right.
Me too.
So if you're getting these gentle hms and nudges from, say, your account managers that you use, or other departments in your company, or your spouse is going, wait, what?
Yeah.
Take that into some stock of, sometimes we're not always self-aware of, you think you know what you want, but do you know what you need?
Yeah. And actually, that's a good point. And if you're a hiring manager out there and you work with staffing companies, if you could use an input on this, feel free and throw that out there. I think that's actually kind of the sales and hiring manager side of how candidates can be very surprised to learn that you should never spend money on having your resume redone. Like, that's part of the service that we provide. Like, we will help you with that. We can give you anything from ideas to criticisms on how to present yourself on paper.
Yeah.
Same basic thing about how you can sell the opportunity to candidates that you're trying to bring in.
What are your job descriptions looking like? Here's the other thing. That's the other thing you should look at is, and we're gonna do some podcast episodes on reading job descriptions, but you can isolate and kind of what's the word I'm thinking of, but push away or be unattractive to certain types of people just by the words that you use in your job descriptions. And I'll have specific numbers and stats on that, but there are,
geek out.
you know it, but they can figure out certain words that will attract men versus women. And how long they are, how much you're talking about yourself, your company versus.
And I'm curious to see this because this is not really an area of the psychology, for lack of a better word, behind it.
Yeah, which is more my area cool. that I like.
No doubt. Amanda Research Anderson, absolutely love you for it. Talent gaps. I think that covers a lot of maybe the most obvious examples of lack of an ability to somebody to promote, lack of a specific skill, or here's another one though that I know I can't wait. Just you should be licking your lips for this sucker. How about identifying and addressing the talent gap having to do with like the diversity angle? So we're talking about anything from you have an older crew to bringing in a younger. You have a younger crew bringing in somebody older.
Been there. Yep.
You have like all guys bringing in females. Yeah, all females bringing in guys. I think it was they gave the example several shows ago that you had a friend that always had one male on the team or something like that because maybe not. There was a group of female.
We just didn't have very many. It was very many men.
Then that might have been my example. There was an entire department of primarily females, and the manager was very deliberate to at least have one male on the team because it would kind of settle some of the cattiness that she saw in her team.
Sure.
So what are your thoughts about talent gaps having to do with any of that stuff?
So I think you have to be very cognizant of your unconscious biases, which is hard to do. It's really hard to do, but
especially if you have one type of person.
I hired women.
Yeah.
I hired lots of young, early in their career, mostly straight out of college women. Like that is, and it was important to me. I would like to develop them and coach them. It was the fact that I was in a position to be able to do that. I took advantage of that opportunity. However,
and that is insert any other group of people.
Correct.
If you hire the same type of person, who cares?
Whether
young,
it's
old, doesn't
race
matter.
Or whatever it is.
Exactly. Yes.
You have a type.
And so you have a however.
Yeah. So, however, later in my tenure, I was looking to hire this older woman. And I actually did get pushback from it going, she's not going to fit in with the team. Is she going to want to work the full 40 hours? Like a lot of the biases and the prejudice that you hear of, like with ageism. And I pushed for her. I was like, she has transferable skills. And
phrase of the day.
It kind of is. I researched it yesterday. And so, but she did. And she ended up working out really great.
Did you want her to come in because of that dynamic?
No.
No, it wasn't.
No,
it was.
She knew all the answers without the right terminology. She was self-taught. Mm-hmm. She knew how to do it from just an intrinsic point of view.
Yeah, so she needed molding just like everybody else. She started as a little older.
She needed someone to take a shot on her. And all of her marketing experience had to do with the church. No, that's not
It's
our
not
target
related,
market. It's not
exactly.
related,
Yeah.
but it was marketing. So she understood
Yeah.
how to get in the minds of her audience and how to appeal to them. And no one taught her that. She just had that ability. And I was like, why wouldn't I hire someone like this?
Of course.
But you have the reason for the diversity, whether any kind of diversity, age, race, sex, any of it. You need that diversity for to create the best possible products and services. The one example that comes to mind that I always kind of remember is when they were developing, in the automatic faucets.
Yeah.
It was a team of white men that made that. You know what happened the first time a black man or woman, I don't know who it was, tried to use it?
I don't know.
It didn't register their skin color.
Okay.
Because they never thought of it.
Wait, is that a problem?
They never fucking thought of it. And it was things like that with women. The NASA team, this is the other example, the NASA team approached the female astronaut because she was going up for a short, I think it was like a week.
Yeah.
She was going up to the space station and back. And there was only men on this planning team, and they approached her and go, is 100 tampons enough for your trip? What? The appalling, and for those of you who are not aware, it's overkill. Slightly. You need... did she even need them with?
Do I need one per 5 minutes?
Or do you need 5? I don't understand.
Right.
I don't understand.
Yeah,
so you need the diversity.
The obvious, even just completely innocuous, clearly not intended, not even...
They were just oblivious.
Yeah,
they were
just
completely oblivious.
In a wholesome sense.
Correct.
Right.
And bless their silly little hearts.
Right.
That is why a very inclusive and diverse team is so important. The perspectives that you don't even know that you don't know are really, they have proof. They have proof that it makes your products, services, culture, company, everything immensely better.
Yeah, and we have clients that are very intentional to do that, and the opposite. Where you have a manager that's very deliberate to say, hey, the team's a bunch of blanks, and I think,
they want to keep it that way.
It could be anything from we have all offshore Indian consultants, and we would, that would probably be the type of person that we think would fit in. Whatever, could be anything. So obviously it's not like it's not like it's a. It's not like someone's crossing an HR boundary. It's just more of your argument is a little more of just having the awareness of it and in regards to that, because I think
it is a talent gap,
right. And I for a while I had a similar scenario where it was pretty much all guys in here, and I wanted to switch that up a little bit too. And kind of the young old debate too in regards to how, who you're hiring and whatnot. So you could have argued, even if she was like that example for who you were hiring, even if she was walk on water and could crush it coming in, maybe just having somebody on the team that clearly is like heads and shoulders better for the team to see what you could be a few years from now. Correct. You know what I mean? Or like, this is what a lead would look like, as opposed to what we've been kind of getting away with on having a producer act as a lead.
Well, it could have been anything. A perspective gap.
Yeah.
So even if it's not, it's talent, but it's a different way of looking at it. Do you have a diversity gap, a perspective gap, where you are literally looking one way, right? You're facing someone and they see a 6 and you see a 9, but you never hire the person that sees the 6.
Yeah. Obviously, they've never played Uno, but I get your point. I still suck at that.
It's just one of those things you need, and I'll always be the one that harps on this, but it's just the diversity is a talent gap that I don't think address often enough.
Yeah, and I think it depends on kind of the manager's almost perception. If you've gone mechanical, almost emotionless, where you've been either doing this so long or the turnover so high that it's just backfill. Sure. I get it. You've almost stripped a little bit of the humanity out of it, almost just by being jaded by life. But if you're paying attention, you can see. Where, and for me, a lot of this, I love the technical component as well, just because of the fact that if you have people that do the job in a certain way, I don't care if you're a developer, you know, there's an art behind that, right? Like how they write code. It's a science, of course, but it is very nuanced.
There's good code and bad code.
Exactly. So you might intentionally be bringing in somebody that just has a completely different style from others, or the opposite. The style has to be the same.
We actually had that too, where it predominantly was a white male team. And there was a black man that was hired, and he did do things differently.
Yeah.
And not because he was black, but it was just a different perspective.
Right.
And it was just one of those things where it was refreshing. So I'm in a review, and his review was not great because he didn't do it the way the other gentleman wanted it. And I, as a non-technical person, had to kind of referee going, but does it work? Is it clean? Is
Exactly,
it new and
yeah.
you're just not used to it? Like, just because it's not how you would do it doesn't make it wrong.
Yeah. And so in my industry, for example, there is a lot of ways to handle recruiting. The job boards can be utilized by some and despised by others. And people can spend a lot of time in LinkedIn and then none. And I really like embracing the for lack of a better word, variety and diversity of thought on how to do this job.
Yeah.
So when I notice that I have people that are starting to be all singularly thought on how to find candidates, I'm like, this is bad. You know, we have to be able to make sure that we have people that are doing this differently. So like, I fundamentally disagree with a staffing firm that would say there's a way to recruit. But that's a little bit of a geeky version of how we do what we do. But to me, that was a talent gap that I genuinely addressed about a year and a half ago, because I think there should be a variety in what 100%. We do. What we're shaking trees and looking under rocks. That's what we do for a living. So if you're going to the same location in our industry, that's not the right place to be. It's not the right thought process, right?
Well,
so you have to have people that think differently, or I don't care if it's quirky. Just come in and let me know how you do it. I'm curious.
You even did it with me, where we're bringing in people very indirectly, long game, from a different way with marketing.
Yeah.
It's 1,000% different than what the rest of the team is doing.
I mean, they're focused on numbers and producing now, and we're playing
the long game, and it's still trying to find people in these other ways. But I mean, I post our jobs in 6 different places typically. And so in all different areas than where the guys are looking. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, again, new rocks that they weren't quite aware of. And so that's been fun.
Yeah. So I think talent gap is normally, if you're a manager out there or you're involved in hiring, it's really just an awareness thing. Like if you're paying attention,
taking the time,
you're going to know. If it's a simple technical thing, it might be really cut and dry, but normally it's something that tends to, all of a sudden, it can come out of nowhere. It can definitely be self-inflicted if you realize you have a talent gap. So if you feel that way, fear not. We've all been there.
Yes.
But nonetheless.
And it's fixable.
Exactly. So you'll see this show here soon published. Check us out anywhere online. We are available. And we're going to come back with another episode of the old Hire and Fire podcast soon, specifically diving deep into project manager skill sets.
I had an awesome time.
Totally agree. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Hire Fire podcast, brought to you by Pira Consulting. Check us out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or online at piraconsulting.com. That's PIRA consulting.com.